The Lexus LFA is what happens when one of the biggest automakers in the world gets bored of building the Prius. They create a naturally aspirated V10 supercar. The LFA has become one of the most legendary cars to come out of Japan, and the current market values certainly reflect that. And today, we get to drive one. The LFA has a 4.8-liter naturally aspirated V10 that was co-developed with Yamaha. It makes 553 horsepower and 354 pound-feet of torque. By today's standards, that may not sound like a ton of power, but that's not the whole point of this engine. It's the way it delivers that power, the sound, the responsiveness. The LFA V10 will rev from idle to redline in 0.6 seconds. When they first released this, they claimed that an analog tachometer could not keep up with how quickly this engine revved, so they had to put in a digital one. Redline is a stratospheric 9,000 RPM. The sound of this engine is just unbelievable. Race cars aspire to sound like a Lexus LFA. The LFA is rear-wheel drive only and also has an automated single-clutch transmission, which again, by today's standards, cannot compare to the latest dual-clutch technology, but it'll be very interesting to see what it's like in this car. In terms of exterior styling, I've never thought the LFA was the most pretty of supercars, especially when you compare them to some of the Italians or maybe an Aston Martin. Those are more beautiful to me. The LFA was designed with functionality in mind. You can see a lot of airflow aspects to it, like the intakes on the side, how the bodywork was designed for functionality and performance. Look up front here. This may look like a gigantic panel gap or that the hood is not properly closed, but no, that is for functionality. This car here is also finished in sunset orange, which makes it extra special. Most of the LFAs I've seen out there are black, white, or silver, and they look cool, but this orange is truly amazing on this car. It does have a couple aftermarket touches on it too. Carbon fiber front splitter, we have the Brixton forged wheels, and something else that makes this one unique is we have the fog lamps up front. Now, it is a cool car, it's iconic, it turns so many heads when it's driving around, especially when it's orange, and I do love the rear 3/4 angle. You've got the active rear wing up right now, we have the triple triangular exhaust tips. Don't get me wrong, the LFA looks absolutely amazing, but I don't think it's conventionally beautiful. Does not mean it's one of the most badass looking cars on the road. With that, let's hop inside. We're gonna talk about the interior, take it for a drive, see what that's like. We'll talk about the value too, because these have just skyrocketed. All right, time to hit the road in the Lexus LFA. Wow! Whoa! Oh my God. As I collect my thoughts, let's start off by talking about the interior of the LFA. This car came out in 2012, and certain aspects of it absolutely show it, namely the infotainment screen, which looks like my TI-84 calculator. So that's not very advanced, we'll ignore that. But the rest of it actually still feels very modern, dare I say. The materials obviously are fine. It's leather, carbon fiber, suede headliner. The seats are leather, they're pretty comfortable, 8-way power adjustable, and everything is of the utmost quality, fit and finish, and the tactile feeling in the LFA is amazing. These paddle shifters are unbelievable. Listen to this, not only the downshift, but the sound of the paddle shifter itself. That mechanical engagement is remarkable. We have a full digital cluster, which has a really unique piece to it, which is this bezel around the tachometer itself that shifts to the right. It actually slides over when you toggle right and pull up the menu. So not only does the display change on the screen, but this physical ring moves over. That's such a cool touch. And we have the digital tachometer front and center. That is the centerpiece, right? Because you need to see how quickly this V10 is building revs. And it turns white when you're in sport mode. If you go back into auto, it goes into this black kind of theme to it. Then we go to sport, it goes white. And actually the rev location changes. So like 1,000 RPMs no longer even shown, because why bother? You gotta be between 4,000 to 9,000 RPM in this car. What else about the interior? Space-wise, it's pretty good. These seatbelts are bizarre. They're very thick. They're like an early airbag seatbelt safety thing. So they're this like mesh material, and they definitely are kind of strange. They're kind of a pain in the ass to buckle, but I'm complaining about the seatbelts in LFA. What am I doing? This car is about driving. Even partial throttle. So we have to talk about the transmission. It's not great. It's a single clutch automated manual, so exactly what you expect, like a Lamborghini E-Gear. So it has that jerkiness to it, but when you are full throttle, it gives you that kick, so it gives that intensity, but otherwise, it does feel very, very similar if you've driven like a Lamborghini E-Gear and a Gallardo or a Murcielago. So there's a bit of the delay, the wave as it goes through, but I think it adds character to the car. This generation, that was the technology that they had to put down this kind of power, performance, shift times. In manual mode, it's okay. In auto mode, it's not good. So don't drive in auto mode. Cody showed me what it was like earlier, and it's not enjoyable. This engine is unbelievable. In terms of absolute performance, LFA 0 to 60 mid to high 3s, quarter mile high 11s. That is not fast. That's not by today's standards. Even back then, it was okay in terms of acceleration. A GTR would be way faster, 0 to 60 with launch control, things like that. But again, I don't feel that was the purpose of this car. That engine is so special. Very few things in the world can match the emotion of this V10. And we're talking like Carrera GT, maybe like a Pagani Zonda with a V12 in it. It's unbelievable. Top speed was rated at over 200 miles an hour. There were iterations like the Nürburgring edition that was more track focused. They made it handle a bit better, more aggressive aero, things like that. Tiny bit more power too. But this car, I mean, it's just, you want to talk about analog driver engagement. All right, let's take one run to red line. Wow. And then it downshifts. Wow. I actually appreciate that it's quote unquote only 550 horsepower, because you can enjoy it. You can run it to red line. And if I did that, what I just did in the 720S, we'd be doing 190 miles an hour, and that's a little risky. This, you can feel everything. You hear everything. Wow. So this car has a very interesting procedure to go between reverse, neutral, drive. There's a little button here on the left, little toggle for going into reverse. You pull both paddles back if you want to go into neutral. So that's neutral. Give it a couple revs. Release. Now we're back in the gear. To go into reverse, you have to pull that, or push it. Is it pull or push, Cody?
It's a pull.
It's a pull. And then if you want to go back into drive, you have to go into neutral and then engage gear. So it's like this whole dance you have to do to go between reverse, neutral, drive. We have a traction control button on the left, which we're not going to touch. But then there's all sorts of different modes. We mentioned auto, sport, normal, and wet. And then there's something else that can change the intensity, speed of the shifts. So there's so many controls and things you can do with this car. That's the LFA way, right? It's the crazy level of technology, precision, performance. They took it to the max. Just that engine, the engineering that went into this V10 is unbelievable. The way it builds revs, the precision, unlike anything else out there. That's how the Japanese do it. It really does embody the ethos of what Toyota and Lexus does. They take a goal and apply it in the most insane way possible. Whether it's a Toyota Prius being efficient and performing in that aspect, or the LFA being a track-focused V10 supercar, it's crazy. It's crazy. We need to talk about value, and the LFA is extremely valuable. Even back when they were new in 2012, the MSRP for an LFA was around $375,000, $400,000, depending on how it was optioned. And that was a lot of money back then, competing against things like Ferrari 599s, Lamborghinis. But this was a very expensive car, especially as a Lexus. They didn't have a history of building supercars like some of the Italian supercar manufacturers. But hindsight is 2020, and we all should have bought LFAs because they have skyrocketed in value. For the longest time, they just kind of held at MSRP. You could find a good one for $300,000-$400,000, and then over the last couple years, they've just gone to insanity. You can't find an LFA for call it under $700,000. I've seen them sell for $700,000-$800,000 for regular ones, and the Nürburgring editions are going for well over $1 million. One sold for $1.6 million recently. The Nürburgring editions are the most rare. There are 50 of those, but overall LFA 500 built. So this is an extremely rare car, and I think long term these are going to hold and keep climbing. Maybe not up to Carrera GT values, because again, Porsche still has more of that brand prestige. Same thing with Ferrari, right? They have a history of that, but this is a special car. It's unique. They haven't really done anything like this again from any Japanese manufacturer, so it's just kind of the pinnacle. And the emotion and analog feel is something that new cars aren't going to be able to match. The rarity is not something they're going to be able to match. This thing is just crazy. Absolutely crazy. I'm driving it, call it $800,000 Lexus LFA. Those downshifts are amazing. Wow. So there we go. I just got to experience an LFA, just drive around the streets of Scottsdale. Unbelievable experience. Absolutely unbelievable. This engine is everything that I thought it would be. The highlight, the absolute highlight. Thank you so much to the owner, Tyler, and my good friend, Cody, CJN Photography, for making this opportunity happen. Like, I wasn't as excited to drive this as I was the McLaren P1, the Koenigsegg Regera, because it's that level of rarity, right? Specialness. This is an LFA. Unbelievable. Make sure you also check out the video I did with Cody talking about what it's like the daily drive. This kid gets to drive this thing on photo shoots, right? We used it for rollers of my Z06, which incurred lots of internet wrath, which was funny. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. I certainly enjoyed making it. Thanks for watching.